Hello, everybody. I'm so excited that you're all here to join me on my very first show together with Heather, hosted on Native Roots Radio. I'm really, really excited for this journey and this adventure with you. We'll be doing this show every Wednesday from 7:30 to 8:30. We'll be talking about all kinds of things. I feel like in my life, I just wear so many different hats and I have so many different networks and amazing things that I've been a part of. And I just want to have the opportunity to really share it all with you and have an opportunity to have conversations around things. And so we've shared it out in a couple spaces. Be sure we do have Facebook up. So if you have any questions or any comments, you can enter it in there. But we'll be doing this every week. So thank you all so much for joining. We'll get started here. The first thing I want to do is I want to bring on the team who really made this happen. Robert and Ogama, if you want to join me, I want to talk about how this all kind of came about. So as some of you know, I recently elected to the Minnesota House, and during my campaign, Robert Pilot from Native Roots Radio and a couple other shows, I feel like I've been on the symposium and other shows, he really reached out and connected with me, and I started to love this platform and have an opportunity to talk to our community, talk to our youth across the state and across the region. And so I'm just so grateful for Robert giving me the opportunity. I was kind of teasing him. I was like, I think I want to start like my own podcast. And he was like, wait, where are you going to go do that? You should do that like on our shows. We should host that. And so it's always been really nice to have his support and belief, you know, in me and really encouraging me to step outside of my box and really make a lot of new friendships and relationships in this process. So thank you, Robert. Do you have anything you want to jump on and say?
Well, I'm just excited to watch this growth, and just the short time I've known you, I'm really excited about how you're going to be supporting everybody, your community, our community, the state of Minnesota, your family. And I'm just really excited to meet your family, because when you came up with the idea of like, I want to have my family on the show, I was like, wow, that's a great idea. And I think that that just shows how much you think out of the box, and excuse me, and how progressive you are. And we're really excited here at Native Roots Radio to support you and all your work. I need to drink some water here.
He was in language class before he came over here using all that. So the other person I want to highlight is Ogama. Ogama is doing all of the background stuff. She just works so hard. She's so passionate about this work. And I think she just has this fantastic future. And so it's a really fun team. I feel like we probably spend more time laughing and kind of teasing each other than actually like the 10 minutes of productive conversation. But Ogama, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and how you kind of feel being a part of this is going to work?
Sure. So my name is Ogama Ganu Ikwe. I am a descendant of the Red Lake Nation in northern Minnesota. I have been working with Native Roots Radio like a year and a half or something, Robert, 2 years maybe. I kind of stumbled upon Native Roots Radio and had reached out to Robert to find a way to help. I had felt in my life at that point that I hadn't had anything in my life that I really felt was doing something good for Native people. And the radio show seemed like a really good way to do that. So Robert gave me the chance to kind of audition and give him an 8-minute piece. So I did the traditional Native thing on his suggestion, and I told the story. Fun fact, I used to have 2 birthdays. Got that fixed now, though. And after that, it kind of cascaded into me doing a lot of promotion and sharing for the show, getting more people aware of what we're doing. And now I do a news piece each week on the Saturday show. And then most of the shows that you see on Native Roots Radio where we're on camera like this, I'm in the background making things pop up, helping promote and put up websites for people so you all know where to go. I help manage the comments. So if you have comments that you're adding to the show, we can put them up on screen. So just make sure you know you have your chance to make a comment or ask a question. It can be on screen live, which is a really exciting feature of this new program we're trying. So I'm always excited to do this for Native Roots Radio. Any of the work that I'm doing for Native Roots Radio makes my heart happy. It's work, but it feels not like work. It feels like I'm doing something I should be doing. So I'm really proud to be here, and really, really proud of Heather. Just before the show started, Heather was talking about how putting those seeds in people's heads and people's minds and letting them see what's possible, and her getting up into that space and the Minnesota State Legislature is amazing, and she's going to inspire so many children. I know my daughter's really impressed. She is really excited to meet Heather. She couldn't stop talking about it the other day, and she's 7, and she goes, "And Mom, we have a woman vice president now." And
Yeah.
she's so excited to see women in government and women being able to make the rules. She very much so likes to make the rules. So I really hope to see Heather go very far in her legislative work, and I'm excited to see her and what she's going to do. She really has an ear out for the community. So it's a beautiful thing to have Heather here, and I am happy to be here and work with her.
See how exciting it is? I told you we have a great team. We were actually just talking about like we've never been in the Capitol. Like I went for the very first time last week. And I was just saying that in this role, as I move into a state legislator, like I want to bring community with me. You know, I don't want to do this alone. I say that and I actually mean that. That's part of why I thought the show was going to be so important. And so I just want to make sure that everybody understands that this show is going to be so much bigger than a couple things. It's going to be bigger than just Indigenous topics. It's one of the things that I talked to Robert about, that like we really just need to expand our conversations. There are things out there that I feel like there's just not a platform to talk about it in an authentic way. You know, do we talk about foster care, and do we talk about ICWA, and do we talk about mental health and substance abuse and what that really does to families, and historical trauma, and just all of these things, friendship, long distance friendships, and how we manage that. There's a lot of topics out there that will go down, but also this is not a political show. We are not going to be like talking about politics. This is very much real life conversations. I just happen to be a state representative. So there will be some things that come up, in my journey in that, and conversations with that. I hope that one of the shows is talking to my campaign manager, and how, running a campaign in the middle of a pandemic was a challenge, but we just learned so much. The work that I do around education, we've talked about it in kind of my preview, but I'm going to be doing an education corner every single show. In my job, one of the hats that I wear is recruitment. And I've always worked in education. When I was in Indian Ed, I worked and did college and career readiness. And so I think it's really, really important that we talk about some of those things and share tips and tricks, and, make sure, when scholarships are open, and how to apply, and how do we get involved, because I think we all know that education is really this tool to launch us into some of these bigger spaces of conversation. So we'll have that, and I'm open for suggestions, and I'm open for ideas, but let's get to the fun of it. So thank you, team. Thank you for the work. Thank you for the behind the scenes stuff, but I want to start about talking about togetherness and together with Heather, and what that really means, and why this very first show that I wanted to do, I wanted to highlight my family. I think none of us are here alone. We don't get to these, spots in our journey by ourselves, that there's people who are around us who get us to these areas. And, we go through ups and we go through downs, and we really do this together. And so for me to launch into this space, I thought it was really appropriate to bring my family with me. And so with me today, I actually have my son, DJ, and my brother, John, and my mom, Unchi. Well, her name is Donna, but we all just call her Unchi. It's kind of a funny story. And so if we can bring them on. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello, Heather.
Look at them. Dang, you all just look so great. Okay, well, let's just get into some conversation. I love that we're all here. It's kind of like we're in the middle of a pandemic and we are so far apart from each other, but it's fun to be able to share space. DJ, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm doing good.
Good. So just tell us a little bit about you, what grade you're in, some of the things that you like, anything that you want to share.
Well, my name is DJ. I am a freshman and I go to Moorhead High School. I play football and basketball. and I love my family and I love my friends, and I like to try new things. So yeah.
Geez, you almost got us teary-eyed right away.
I'm good
Okay.
at cooking too. Mm-hmm.
Was Unchi just telling you what to say? Was she just whispering to you?
Yeah, no.
What did she say? That you cook?
I'm good at cooking, yeah.
Your favorite dish to make?
I like making breakfast, anything related to breakfast. I don't even like eating in the morning.
How many times a week do we have breakfast for dinner?
Probably like 2 times.
Yeah, at least, right? We have a waffle maker. Okay, let's move on. We'll come back to you, DJ, because we have a lot to chat about. But I want to go over to my mom. So Donna is her name. Unchi is what we call her. Unchi is grandma in Lakota. It's always kind of funny because how many of your friends, DJ, just like call her Unchi and they think that that's her name?
Yeah, all my friends.
Like a lot of them, right?
Yeah.
So I think that, so my mom taught me a lot. She taught me a lot about work ethic. She taught me about the responsibility to care about our community and to care about things much bigger than ourselves. But I'm going to give her a chance to just do a quick introduction before I share all of her glory with you.
Hi, I'm Donna Keeler. I was born and raised on the Wind River Indian Reservation in central Wyoming. It's the only reservation in Wyoming, but the uniqueness of it is that it's a reservation that's shared by 2 very distinct and separate tribes, Eastern Shoshone and Arapaho. And I grew up on a ranch, and I grew up with grandparents that were boarding school students. And so Heather and I just did a informational just this last week that, so literally I'm 1 generation from school boarding. And so that makes her just 2 generations. So I think the impact of, when you think of it in that terms, that what she's accomplished is beyond amazing. To come from a family that my grandparents had a boarding school experience, that she has a master's degree, first of all, and she's a representative now. So, and I went to college. I was in my senior year at the University of South Dakota, and I had an opportunity for employment with United Sioux Tribes as their Johnson O'Malley director. And so I took that when I was 23 or 24, and my salary was $6,000, and I was for sure thought I was a millionaire. I didn't have to worry about paying for gas for my car and a lot of things. Little did I know that that was probably really a bad decision to leave college in your senior year, but that is what happened. But then I later started work with the state of South Dakota Department of Social Services in the Medicaid program. And I wrote the state's Medicaid policy and procedures and rules and regulations for about 20 years. And I left, and well, in an interim, I had been the executive director for South Dakota Urban Indian Health, which, for those of you on, we get our health mainly through Indian Health Service. But for those of us that live off reservations, we oftentimes live too far to drive back home. And so there are 41 urban Indian health programs in the nation. And I was the director of 3 clinics in the state of South Dakota. And I retired in 2017 and did some consulting work and on culture and contracting with some universities. And now I'm just fully retired, loving it, and just spend my days. I do beading, and I read a lot, and I do a lot of gardening. So I'm very laid back.
And you do a lot of traveling to come up and spend time with your grandkids.
Well, I've often thought, if the highway patrol, they do track traffic lines, and I'm sure they're just wondering what this really old woman is selling or giving away, because she's up and down that corridor on the interstate like every other week.
Mom, it's almost like you're here so regularly that maybe you should just move here.
I'm up here.
No,
I mean, I think that would be.
Yeah, he's here, so we're good.
Okay, well, that's my mom. We'll get more into her story and how that really like impacted just me and how I've grown into the woman that I am, but also then how, I'm the mom that I am. But I want to take a minute to introduce my brother. So John and I are about 8 years apart. And I think that there's all these stories from our youth that, we kind of just razzed each other all the time. And like, I was sure he didn't really like me for a very long time. Like I remember when I was in 6th grade and he was in high school and I was like walking to the lunchroom and I'm like, hey, there's my brother. Hi, brother. And he was like way too cool. Like, I don't even know that you gave me a head nod, John, but it was like, who is that 6th grader waving at me?
Well, you were a lot younger than 6th grade at the time, I think, because I was only in 9th
so I was
grade.
From elementary.
So you were very little.
I thought you were so cool. Yeah. And so.
Yes, and I did fade you out on that one. I'm sorry.
He's sorry. But.
I'm sorry. Looking back, I should have said hello to my middle.
Take note of that. So when Elliot's waving at you and you're grown, you just wave back to your little sibling. That's what we do. But as John and I grew up, and we kind of say probably when I was like 19, 20, and we could like be adults together, we actually became just very good friends. Our dad got really sick, and I think that created a bond with us as we walked through that journey and him passing on. And then just growing and, going through some other things in our life, and we can call each other and have serious conversations. We can support each other in job changes and in moves and family situations. And then we can just like legit have a good time and laugh and not really take life too serious. And so, my brother has gone through a lot, and education was always something he, stayed focused on through these adverse times in his life. And I learned a lot from my mom with work ethic, but I learned a lot from my brother about education and how important of a role that played. I saw the jobs he was able to get, and I knew that I wanted to be like him. And so when I made my decision to walk down the education journey, it really had a lot to do that I saw my brother do it. And I knew that if he could do it, that there was a chance that I could do it as well. So thanks for coming, John.
You're welcome.
Tell us just a little bit about you and your family and where you're at, and just a little bit about you.
Okay. Currently living in Sheboygan, Wisconsin with my wife, Sasha, and daughter, Sophia. Moved out here a couple of years ago to work at a company called Sigma, which is a chemical manufacturing company, part of the global Merck organization, though we're not allowed to call it Merck in the United States because there's another Merck you're more familiar with, Merck & Company, who also makes pharmaceuticals. I'm a senior validation specialist with Sigma, which means I validate the process that we use to ensure that our instrumentation gives the results we expect it to. I got to this point by getting a BS degree in chemistry from Creighton University, after which I went to a couple different graduate schools, finally graduating from the University of Kansas with a master's degree in synthetic organic chemistry, where I did small molecule synthesis. My first job out of graduate school was then as a wildlife biologist for the Yankton Sioux tribe. Basically, they just needed me to come on board. They got a big grant for wildlife environment remediation, and they needed someone to interface with the Corps of Engineers experts who could speak their language. So I came in to write the management plan, run the program, start getting some techs hired on. Worked for them for about 8 months before getting an opportunity to go back into chemistry with a company named Poet, which is, when I worked there, they liked us to say we were the country's largest producer of biofuel ethanol. So if you ever want to know way too much about ethanol as a fuel and a renewable resource, I'd be happy to tell you about that as well. I won't get into too much of that right now. But I was there for 12 years. And over the course of those 12 years, I also continued to write grants for the Yankton Sioux tribe, continued with the wildlife grants, wrote some grants for their buffalo program. And then the last was 4 years of expanding their treatment program, the treatment center to add methamphetamine treatment possibilities as well. I was not able to continue doing the grant writing after moving out to Wisconsin, so I've had to let that pass. But this job opportunity was too good of an opportunity to pass up, so I did have to move east. Also, my wife really wanted to be back on the Great Lakes. She was in Duluth when we met. She moved down to Sioux Falls to work in the labor and delivery department, but always missed Great Lakes atmosphere. So is where we wanted to be, and it's kind of like coming home in some ways, since the Sioux tribes all started on the Great Lakes hundreds of years ago and migrated west. So it's really interesting to be the only Nakota out here. You know, it's the Oneidas and Potawatomi down in, I believe it's the Potawatomi down in Milwaukee. Not a lot of natives here in Sheboygan, though. So I don't really know what tribes are around here in particular. Maybe it's just me.
Just
I
you.
do have my sauna, though, so I can, you know, sweat and feel some connection.
I knew
Ho-chunk.
Robert was going to say Ho-chunk too.
Of course, Ho-chunk.
Yeah.
Yep. Their big presence to the west of here. Big reservation.
Yeah. Cool. Well, and you also taught a little bit too when you were in.
I did. In graduate school, teaching is a big part of it. So I got to teach labs there, and I enjoyed that so much that when I got out of graduate school, I continued to teach at the University Center in Sioux Falls, so I could really enjoy the interaction with the students. So I continued to do that for 8 years. I've looked into the possibility of doing it out here in Sheboygan as well, but the current position that I have, there's lots of evening meetings with international laboratories that we have, and it's just not a possibility. But I did really enjoy being involved in the teaching when I had those opportunities.
Yeah. See, so education has kind of played a role in our life. I would say our generation, like me and my brother, that we kind of really set that standard. So I want to go back to DJ because he is the coolest teenager that I know. So DJ, let's just talk about all of this. I feel like the last year a lot's changed. You know, you've seen a lot of education in your life, but you know, I went to school late in life. So you saw me get my bachelor's, you saw me get my master's, you saw me do the homework, you saw all this campaign stuff and, you know, win this seat. Like, how do you feel as like a teenager watching all of this?
I think that it's a really cool experience because like none of my friends like have a mom as cool as my mom. And it's just cool because I feel like I've gotten to just spend a lot of time with Elliot too, like just watching him while you're doing your work. And it was also cool seeing you go to college because I definitely want to go to college, and seeing you graduate too and working hard, just inspiring to me.
So one of the coolest things, well, a couple cool things. Well, DJ is very smart, and it's fun because we talk a lot about his grades and his tests and some things. And there's even sometimes that, you know, he calls Uncle John and talks about some science things, or, you know, I do not have the science brain, as you all can probably tell. We saw where that landed in the family. So there's things that, you know, DJ is just so smart at, but we've done a lot together, huh, DJ? Like some really cool things. So one of the things that we did in the community was we passed Indigenous Peoples Day. And as some of you who know who's watching, that was very much a community effort. I may have led that effort, but it was not alone. Like I brought a lot of people in the community with me. And so one of the things that we had to do was stand in front of city council and give our story and tell our why. Why did we feel like this was important? And there's a lot of moments that I'm really, really proud of DJ. But he stood up and he had a little speech prepared and he talked about how important it was. And so like he played this huge role in the youth voice of making Indigenous Peoples Day come alive in our community. You remember that, DJ? That was like just a year and a half ago. How did you feel when you were standing there? Like, were you nervous? Was it exciting? What did you feel?
It felt cool because like I always like talked about like wanting to make a change in the community and like wanting to help others just get recognized and everything. And then that day I finally got to actually use my voice and help create some change. And it just felt good.
Mm-hmm. You did awesome. And I was like trying not to cry, but like crying and just like so excited. And it was just so awesome. So one of the things I do, one of the many hats I wear is, as of still today, I am the vice chair of our Human Rights Commission here in Moorhead. And one of the things that we've implemented in this commission is that one of our seats can be held by a youth in our community. And so the really fun part of this transition as I move into a state seat is that DJ is stepping up to take my seat on the Human Rights Commission here in Moorhead as the youth voice. And I feel like I asked you, maybe I like voluntold you, I don't know, but but how do you feel about that? Like, what are you excited to do that? You said that you were excited to have a voice in the community.
Yeah, that's really exciting. So I know nobody else is doing that. So I am, it feels good.
Mm-hmm. All right. I'll come back to you, DJ. I'll stop for a minute. I'm just so proud of you. You're just like the coolest kid and you just work so hard and you just stay humble and you're kind of a goofball and I just love you a lot. So thanks for being awesome. You get it from your mom. You know that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. John, let's talk a little bit about just family struggle. We've gone through a lot. We've had a lot of really awesome times, but, we've experienced a lot of loss in our life and in our family. And I should have brought Kleenex. I feel like this could get to a space, but I think that it's really, we have to be able to talk about the ups and downs and things and how family is so important to get through some of these areas. But so our dad was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and it was directed, they say it was directly linked to Agent Orange because our dad served in Vietnam. And so we are very much a military family. That's probably a whole nother conversation, but our dad served, our brother served, our nephew is serving. It even goes.
My mother served, retired lieutenant commander in the commission corps.
Yeah. So I should probably say
commander.
My mom is not John's mom. We share the same dad. I feel like that's a whole other conversation too, how like when blended families really do blended family well. When I come back to Sioux Falls, a lot of times me and John and his mom go out and eat. And then there's a lot of times then that John comes over to my mom's house, and we all eat, and he goes out with my stepdad for mussels and beer. Like, it's just this, when you do blended family well and you just care and love each other, like those relationships don't matter. And I think that we're a pretty prime example of that. But so military, because then on the other side, my mom's dad served, so we run deep in military, but I want to get back to our dad. And so he was sick and he utilized the VA and the IHS. And like my mom had mentioned earlier, that's the Indian healthcare service that a lot of Indigenous people use across the nation. And we watched our dad get really sick really fast. Don't you think, John? Like, I feel like from when he actually told us.
Yeah, there was a little bit of warning earlier, which was it wasn't quite diagnosed yet because it's a very small spot, but the Indian Health Service in Marty did in Wagner, noticed a spot in his lungs a long time before he got sick, but they weren't quite sure what it was. And then I was living down there with him at that time, and we had our dog in the house and thought, well, maybe the shortness of breath that you're experiencing comes from a reaction to the dog dander as a new thing introduced. So because they didn't catch the cancer at that time, it seemed much more surprising a year later when he really did get sick. But there was some evidence earlier on.
Yeah. And I think they even had made a comment like, oh, well, we see the spot, but we'll just kind of like watch it. And then, but I think that goes to the fact that the IHS is, really underfunded healthcare system. They say it's life or limb, for a lot of us that have utilized it. It's really like these last efforts sometimes. And so I think that was one of the first times that with my brother and I really became this team. Like we were no longer just like kind of bothersome brother and sister, like, kind of teasing each other, that we like really had to be a team, because at the time I was living in Sioux Falls and our dad was living there. And I remember going and like, when he would come up for doctor's appointments, because he was living down on Lake Andes with you, I'd meet him, and go for appointments. And then I remember when dad passed away, then you really stepped in and took care of like the paperwork, because emotionally I was better at being with dad when he was sick. And then you were better organizationally and your mental and emotional capacity to take care of the paperwork afterwards. And it was a side of my brother and our relationship that nobody wants to experience losing their parent, but when you can do it and walk alongside like your family, and have somebody to really support you, there's still times, this was 11 years ago, and there's still times that I can call my brother and just be really sad about it. And though it's maybe a different emotion than what he has, they just always listen. So kind of talk about like, what was that like for you? I don't know that we've really, I feel like I'm the emotional one.
By that time, I'd moved to Sioux Falls and started a position with Poet. And it was a very challenging time. But I also knew that Dad had accomplished most of what he had really wanted to do. The final position as the administrative officer for the Yankee Sioux tribe was kind of a pinnacle for him. And he was getting tired in many ways. So while it's a tragedy to lose our father, I also know that he was becoming pretty secure in where he was and comfortable with the transition that was coming. We'd had some conversations even before he had gotten sick that let me feel comfortable in where he was. So in some ways, I think the losing him was easier on me than it was for you, because I had, from these interactions with him, become more comfortable with the concept that he was ready to move on. And I don't know that you ever had that. I know that he wouldn't have had the same conversations with you. He knew that you would be hurt by him even suggesting such things. So he did open up to me about, he wasn't, there was a lot of things in life that he wasn't very satisfied about, in terms of just socially. And he'd even mentioned at one point he thought about taking up smoking again because he didn't really feel the need to maintain his health. Now, a lot of that changed when DJ came along. And he really, at that point, wanted to be involved in seeing DJ grow up, loved having a grandchild, a young grandson that he was so close with. So I think he started to reconnect again then. But by that point, very shortly after that, he got sick. And there was no going back from that point.
Yeah. Well, because we moved back, and it was really cool to see my dad. Like, I don't know how many of you, this change, and, you see your parents as your parent and the way that they parent with you, and then they become grandparents. And it's like, you never let that slide with me, or you know what I mean? Like, there's just this whole different mind frame. And, my dad really did love DJ. DJ was only a year and a half old when my dad passed away. And so it was really a challenging time in our life. I think it played a huge role in our holidays and, how we spend time with each other, because when you have somebody, like a grandparent or a great grandparent, even, you tend to go back to their house, and that's how you see other people. And so that really created this like drift, and kind of shift apart in our family. But kind of no matter the distance, I feel like John and I have at least been able to stay in contact, every now and then. I'll tell you a funny story, and John, you maybe remember it. Obviously DJ won't, but we had very first come back to Dad's house after DJ was born. So DJ, you were only like 6 weeks old, and Pippin was there. DJ, you remember Pippin, right?
Oh yeah.
And we put you in the little baby chair, and Grandpa says, "Now, Pippin, you make sure you watch that baby. Don't let anything happen to him." And Pippin literally like licked your face first, like licked your whole face, and then just like sat like right next to you. Like we were just in the kitchen or whatever, but like, and we kept peeking around, and Pippin was just standing there, like just watching you.
He had a
But yeah,
mission.
he had a mission. Yeah. Dogs in the family. Well, so now let's go down an even more emotional path. And the only reason I want to talk about it is because I think that so John's daughter, my niece, Brittany, came into our life when we were all pretty young. John was a young dad, and again, the whole family stepped up to really take care of her and love on her while John focused on school. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, John?
Yeah, well, it was a challenge, as you would expect. I was 16 when Brittany was born, but I firmly believe that instead of dropping out of school and taking care of her, there was a strong support network in Pierre to care for Brittany. Her mom, Janice, was there. My mom, Arlene, was there to help out a lot with when Brittany was young. As Heather said, they stepped up as well. So I continued my education and missed out on a lot of Brittany growing up, but we were able to have a strong bond. When Brittany was 2 or 3, I got full legal custody while my mother had physical custody, and then Brittany lived with us for the rest of her life until she turned 16 and decided to move out.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not the best of choices, but she did make that choice. And then there was a lot of hardship in her life after that, though a lot of joy. She was a very loving person, very caring person who made very strong friendships. Some of them might not have been the best choice of friendships, and the influences were very harmful and led her to a very young death.
Mm-hmm. So I want to tell a really funny story first because when she was little and we would come down and see you, you were going to school at Kansas. And this is how awesome of an aunt I am. So first of all, I taught her too early in the trip what sound a cow made. So the whole trip down to Kansas was like, moo, 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 to see the cow, moo, like fun. John, how old was she? I mean, she was young.
2 or 3.
And so then we got to
Very
the hotel.
little.
Yeah. And we went swimming. We went down to the swimming pool. And I don't think this trait ever really changed. She just like said how she felt. Like she just told you what was going on. And so she said, Auntie, my swimsuit is in my butt. And I said, well, that's called a wedgie. So she's like, wedgie, wedgie, wedgie. It's like we opened the door in the elevator to like all of these like super professional like businessmen as she's like talking about this situation. And I was like, yep, Aunt of the Year, got that. But that's kind of was like this just fun relationship that we had, her whole life. And so as John mentioned, Brittany kind of ventured out and had friends and did her life. But I think that we have to recognize that our kids go through things that nobody really knows. That depression kicks in, anxiety kicks in, different feelings in our body. And we have to do everything that we can in all the capacities of our mentorship, of our teachers, of our friends, of our families to really recognize some of these. Because I think Brittany struggled with some things really silently, because it was, she was just always this fun-loving person and was always so happy. And I think it was maybe hard for her to really open up. John, would you agree with that, or what would you add to that?
I could see that there might be some things that were difficult for her to open up about. We had a very open communication. So I guess I don't really know if the things that she shared with me, she shared with others, but there were a lot of difficulties that she struggled with. There were legal difficulties, especially with her fiance, and some things he was trying to do that led to her being really, very scared in a lot of ways and ending up in jail at times and having to deal with that. And that made her very emotional. But through all of that, we had a pretty open dialogue. So I did have a pretty good idea what she was feeling. I do know that she had especially as she was getting older, nearing getting deeper into the drugs and alcohol that ended up leading to her illness, she was having a lot of trouble dealing with the world as it was without the magic and the mysticism that she wanted to be there. The spiritual connection was becoming very hard for her to find. And that did lead to a lot of depression and anxiety for her. And that may have been some of those things that you're mentioning that she may have been internalizing that other people didn't really realize she was grappling with.
Mm-hmm. And I think too, we have to recognize that, I think we all probably have people in our family that struggle with alcohol or drug use. And a lot of time it's not a choice. Like at some point in this journey, it really becomes a disease and it becomes something much bigger than ourselves. And so, 3 years ago now, well, 3.5 years ago, Brittany went into the hospital one day and was there for a couple months, and she passed away from that lifestyle. And I feel like, in my role and what I do and what I want to do, I want to have very honest conversations of, the struggles that our kids have and our young adults have, and access to healthcare and being able to get the help that we really need. And like, is 30 days of treatment really enough all the time? And, what other supports do we need to give? There was some medication things that were kind of,
I would say that 30 days of treatment isn't even a beginning. You finally start to get an addict clean, and then you release them out into the world with all the same influences. She had to move back into her fiance's, or chose to move back into her fiance's house. He beat me there to pick her up on the day she was getting out of treatment and took her home. And that's where she decided she wanted to be. Well, within days, she was drinking again. And it wasn't more than a few weeks or months before she was in the hospital with the acute liver failure. But we thought about if she'd been able to get into a halfway house, would that have helped? Well, the treatment place who wasn't able to place her in a halfway house said, the influence in the halfway house can be very negative, and there was no guarantee that that would have helped. A longer treatment program in a clean environment may have helped her and given her the skills that she would have needed when she came out, and maybe she would have made a better choice, came to stay with us when she left treatment, or went somewhere other than back into her alcoholic fiance's house where the influences were just too strong. But that's all speculation.
Well, and there's so many things, like the systems are just not set up. I think that there's just this really scary stigma out there about it. But thanks for walking down that journey with me, John. I know that it's just one of those things that pain and family people don't really want to talk about, but it's also what drastically changes us, and it changes who we are to the core. It changes what matters to us. It changes the voices that we have. And for me, I really hold her very close in my soul and in my heart, and try to do this bigger work, for people who struggle with things like she did. She was so beautiful and so bright, and we're just so lucky to have her in our lives for the time that we did.
Right. Well, and there had also been other things that had happened in that time to her that may have driven her into the depressions we were mentioning earlier. The loss of her mother from the same disease that she died from, which brings us into topics of, hereditary and the alcoholism that goes from generation to generation, the damage that it causes. And then she had a miscarriage as well. And this was just a devastation that led her into depression from which she couldn't get out of. And the drugs and alcohol were there as the support network that she felt would help her, but it really did not. We thought we were going to save her when we got her into the treatment program. Unfortunately, it was too little too late.
Yeah.
I mean, it seemed like it. It seemed like the after-school special. She woke up one morning and she didn't start drinking immediately. And I got over there out of work, left work and got there and said, we're going to get you into a treatment program today. And we spent the day trying to find a treatment program we could get into in Sioux Falls. And we finally did find a treatment program where we walked into the office and we said, we'd like to get Brittany in. And they said, well, we really can't do anything today. Why don't you come back later and we'll see if we can work something out? And I told them, well, she's sober right now. This
Right.
is the opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, all right, if you're serious, and I said, we'll sit here in the office until you figure out what you can work out to get her in somewhere as quick as possible. And they said, all right, if you're that serious, go have lunch, come back in an hour, and we will figure something out. And we ended up staying in that office until they found a placement for her. And it seemed because of that it was going to work out. She was going to get into the treatment. She wanted to get better. Just didn't work out after she left the facility after 30 days.
Yeah, it's just not long enough. So let's so we're going to start to wrap up, but I want to kind of go down a path with my mom. Thanks, John, for walking through that.
You're welcome.
So my mom is awesome. You all heard that in the intro. It's kind of interesting. She didn't talk about it, but, she was kind of asked to just come to the state and do it wasn't mom, like a 6-month kind of like contract work to talk about healthcare and the systems. And she's very humble when she says what she did, but she basically built the whole Medicaid program and the policies and really implemented it. That's in my mind, that's what my mom did. I remember growing up as a little girl, traveling all over the state of South Dakota. And remember, Mom, the referral forms were purple, and we had to do all those trainings at every single community. And so I was like the sign-in girl and welcomed everybody and gave them their little packets. And I was probably 8 or 9 years old, watching my mom go around and talk to people. And I even remember in 6th grade, we had to do this project about well, what do you want to be when you grow up? And people were like, I want to be an astronaut. I want to be this. And I was like, I want to be my mom. She's a state worker. I don't really know what. I even wore one of her blue dresses. This is what I want to do. Ironically, now I am a state worker, but it was just, my mom really taught me work ethic. As a young girl, I don't think I knew what I was seeing or what I was a part of. And I tell my mom, thank you, probably not near enough. But the best part about it is that we've kind of gotten into this space as adults where we do these tandem presentations and we do things together professionally. We just did a presentation on, was it Monday, Mom?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, on understanding Indigenous culture. But one of the coolest things is my mom sat on some national boards, and my mom won some phenomenal awards for the work that she did. And if you ever go and have dinner at my mom's, you would never know that about her. She's just so humble in the work that she did, and she did these tremendous things. And so, Mom, I want you to talk a little bit about the work that you did on a national level, but a little bit more, I want you to share the story about the award that you won in DC, and DJ got to go with you, and DJ, what that meant to be able to see Unchi win a national award.
Okay. Well, so I was the director of South Dakota Urban Indian Health. And as I said, there are 41 of our programs in the nation. And we're all nonprofits. And so when you talk about Indian Health Service, obviously, you know that when we get funding from the federal government, IHS gets a kind of, it's not a block grant, but for easy understanding, it's a block of money. And then in that, there's one line item that goes to Urban Indian Health. And so that one line item provides the financial support for clinical services. And so the overall IHS budget is underfunded by an estimated 57% just globally. And so when you take that figure and then you take one single tiny line item for urban Indian health programs, it's very small. So you have to be very creative. And as a director, I can remember I was at Heather's house one time writing a grant, and it was about 4:00 in the morning, and it was after Elliot was born. And at 4:00 in the morning, they got up to feed Elliot, and I was still working on this grant. And they said, "Wow, you get up really early to start your grant." And I said, "Well, no, I just haven't been to bed yet." just haven't been to bed yet. So I did a lot of grant writing, a tremendous amount of grant writing. But I think that was my skill set, was putting words on paper. And so we created many things in the clinic, and not put Heather or John on the spot. But they kind of witnessed some of the uniqueness of our delivery of healthcare. And not that we were completely outside of what a lot of the other 40 programs do, but even in the mental health arena, we co-located mental health therapists right alongside our medical team. And so when you came in, we asked you a certain group of questions. And from those questions, if there was a mental health issue that rose and you were here for your diabetic test, you got an introduction, and a warm introduction to a mental health therapist or a substance abuse counselor. No pressure, just, hi, I'm so-and-so. You know, if you ever need to call, come in. I just wanted to meet you. And so we got a lot of transferred referrals between the physical side of the clinic and then the mental health and the substance abuse. And so Heather talks about the awards that our program won, because we had really great people that worked in our clinics, is that we developed a prenatal program. And in the state of South Dakota, we were having so many premature babies, and they were not well, and they were to very, not the super young moms, but they were to moms that were in, the highest range was around the 19 to 24, but really not in good health themselves. So when you're in a prenatal program, you really have to take care of yourself. And so while we knew we had substance problems with some of our young moms, we helped them through that so that they could try and stay sober at least during the pregnancy. And we had phenomenal outcomes. We had babies that were at weight, healthy weight, so they were not underweight. And we had every baby to term except one in our first year of the full completion of the prenatal program. So the first award given by Indian Health Service at an annual meeting was for innovative and outstanding new programs. And so our prenatal baby steps won a national award. And part of that was that we looked at the patient holistically. And for all the natives on the viewing, you know that that's physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And so we didn't just look at the physical part of being pregnant, but we looked at all those other things that were so important. So that was the first award. And then there was an improved patient care program within the IHS structure. And that was that we needed to really start to have quality care, and we needed to compete with rural health clinics in our communities. And we needed to step up with tracking disease moderations of, were our patients really getting better? Were they adhering to protocols? And so the improved patient care became a real core of Indian Health Service throughout the nation. And so I won a National IHS Directors Award under Dr. Rubidoux. And then a year after that, I won my second IHS Directors Award. And so there were 3 national awards from Indian Health Service. And then I was elected as the president of the National Council of Urban Indian Health, which is a nonprofit organization established in Washington, D.C. And they are amazing and wonderful. And if you ever need help, or if you ever want to support an Indian program nationally, NACUI is amazing. And it was truly an honor to serve as their president. It was enlightening and very important. You get a chance to really speak to congressional staff. You testify at hearings, and it just really helps the urban Indians get on the program in the national scene. And so I retired in October of 2017. And I was given an award by IHS for leadership and partnership between the urban programs and Indian Health Service. And so DJ, since he's been 4, we've taken him on summer vacations. And the first one started with 5 days, much to Heather's chagrin that her child was away from her for 5 days. And she would call and say, "You haven't called me yet to tell me where you're at and what my child's doing." But so we have taken him now every summer with us. And so the summer that I won the leadership award, we took DJ to DC with us, and he got to tour all the DC sites and became an expert on the metro system. And then he came to the ceremony with Dave to watch me get the award. So it was awesome. And the award was great too.
Yeah. Well, DJ, talk about it just a minute. Like what it was like. We talked about the fact that you got to do some things with mom and we got to make some change in our community. But like, as a kid, what was it like to see Unchi like get something this big and be recognized on a national level?
It was pretty eye-opening because I thought like growing up, like Unchi is like Unchi, like she's fun, and then I like forgot that she like has a job and like she does like big things, and so it was just like I was like, oh, she's like really doing this, and then I went there and I saw a bunch of other things in DC. It was really fun. I got to hold her award. Yeah. So.
Yeah, that's cool. Hey, Mom, a couple of people in the question want you to spell NCUI, or how would they find more information about that program?
Okay, it's National Council of Urban Indian Health, NCUIH.
Okay, and we can share it out to, we can find a website or a page or anything along those lines and share it out in our groups. But well, we're coming to an end, and this is the part I always hate about anything that I do. I feel like we get into these great conversations, and if you all wonder why I am the person that I am, oh look, see, Ogama, you're the best. It just shows up on the screen when we do things like that. But the big reason of why I'm here and I do what I do is because I have these phenomenal family members. We go through the same struggles and hardships and really through a lot of pain together, but we also really strive and work hard to hold each other accountable to, rise and be better. And I hope that you can see that generationally, we've challenged ourselves to grow. As my mom mentioned, we're not far removed from boarding school family members, to people who maybe just ventured into education a little bit, to now my brother and I, having degrees and being able to do some things on a level, to now my son, knowing he's going to go to college, when we talk about it, right, DJ, like how many top schools do you have right now?
A lot.
And that to me says like my kid knows that college is an option. He watches his GPA. He makes sure that he asks questions, to his teachers and stuff. But I thank you both all for coming. Don't go anywhere, but we are going to take you off the screen for a minute because I want to roll into something that I want to do every single time. And I want to have a conversation about education. We're going to call it just Heather's Education Corner. In my life, in my day job, I am the Assistant Director for Multicultural Recruitment over at NDSU. So this moment is brought to you by NDSU, and we're going to be sharing a lot of information around what our campus has to offer, but I'm also going to be sharing a lot of information that's just helpful to you or anybody in your family who may be looking at school. The number one thing that I want to say is education is always an opportunity. It is not something that's just for high school students that graduate and go to school. I was an older than average student, and I think it just takes somebody telling you that you can go to school if you're in your 20s. You can go to school if you're in your 30s or in your 40s. I just had an awesome conversation last night with one of my friends who's in her 40s, who's now going back to school, and another conversation today with one of my friends who he's looking at going back to school. And so education is always an opportunity. And one thing that somebody told me when I was in school that hit really hard was that, they call us older than average students, but they said that older than average students are the best students to have in the classroom sometimes, because we have lived experiences and we are here, to earn our education because we have a goal in mind. And so a lot of the things that I'm going to talk to you about in this education corner and moving on is not just for our seniors or just our high schoolers. If you are a transfer student, or you're somebody who's maybe just looking to go back to get a different degree, or you're looking to go on to your master's or get your PhD, hopefully you find this information really helpful. But the one thing I want to bring up today is the ACT. And this is geared towards seniors who are applying for applying for schools right now, is that at NDSU, we've waived the ACT score as part of the requirements for admission. It can play a role in some scholarships, but it's not required. And I know that the ACT can be very, very stressful for juniors, especially if you're just not great at taking tests. We know historically the ACT is a test designed for privilege. And so NDSU is waiving that. And I know that a lot of other colleges are as well. So if that's something that's always kind of deterred you away from school, maybe now is the time to really adventure out and see what schools are offering. Almost all of the schools in our region have some sort of capability to waive any type of ACT score, because we know we entered into the pandemic during testing time last year, and it's unfair to ask that for all of our students. Over at NDSU, you can also apply and go to school, or you can apply for school for free. There's a lot of fees that come along with applying for school. Some of them are anywhere from $20 to $30. If you apply for 10 to 12 schools, that gets fairly expensive. But also ask that. If you're looking around and you're applying for schools right now, ask if they have a waiver so that you don't have to pay that application fee. Sometimes all it takes is really just asking. So I'm always here to answer any questions that you have. I think that we need to start talking about education as early as we can, and it's always a lifelong opportunity. So I appreciate you all being here. If you want to bring my family back on, Ogama, and just say one last goodbye. Thank you all for joining. Thanks, family, for being here and being so great. Thanks, Ogama and Robert, for the work that you do to help bring this show together. And thanks to all the viewers out there who tuned in. It looks like we had a pretty decent viewing, and hopefully it just grows. So share more information. We'll be bringing all kinds of people in from all across Turtle Island, the region, and the nation. Thank you all. Does everybody want to say one last thing? John, you want to say one last thing?
Thank you for having me on the show, Heather. Congratulations on getting into the Minnesota State House. That's fantastic. And this looks like a great show you've got started. Thank you to Ogama and Robert for helping you put it on.
Awesome. Thanks, brother. Unchi, what do you got?
I loved it. It's like you're on TV, but you're really on the radio.
Well, and on Facebook. Unchi doesn't have Facebook.
Well, that doesn't count.
Yeah. DJ, what do you got?
I think it was cool being on here. It's like I'm on a bunch of Zoom calls all day because of school, but this is like a fun Zoom call. So.
Because we're fun. And it's a fun format. It's different. It's one thing I love about it. So, all right. Ogama, do you want to wrap us up?
Sure. Thank you so much for inviting us on and for going on this adventure with Native Roots Radio, Heather. We're really excited to have you and to be doing this with you and for you. And it's a pleasure to meet every last one of your family members here. It looks like we lost Unchi and DJ, but that's okay. It's a pleasure to meet all of you. And sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, I understand and I relate to a lot of the stories that you're telling. I lost my father to cancer when my daughter was very young. I don't think I know a single person in my life that hasn't been touched by drug addiction or alcoholism in some way or another, either having lost somebody or somebody close to them who experienced it. I don't have that much experience or information, about IHS, but you know, the healthcare in this country. I've experienced the end of the healthcare industry where you're applying for assistance for healthcare, and that can be kind of a mess too. And I can't imagine how complicated that gets trying to make those systems work with IHS. It's there's a lot of things that need work, and I appreciate you putting yourself out there and all of your family for putting themselves out there to bring these topics to light, to be able to talk about and remove the shame around to talk about in public. It's a really important thing that I think we all need in our lives. And I think that the pandemic kind of gives us a unique opportunity to be able to do this. So miigwech again for coming on with us and for doing this tonight, Heather.
Awesome. Pilame, thank you. Robert, you want to tell us what other shows we have on Native Roots Radio that everybody can tune into?
Well, first I want to say Pinigigi to your family. What a great family, and what a great idea to start your show off. This will be on iTunes too, and then we'll probably be playing it on Sundays as a rebroadcast on AM 950, which you can find out. One of the exciting things too, Heather, is that Native Roots Radio is going to be going 5 days a week. So, and then we're going to be reaching out into Chicago and to Milwaukee and Madison very soon. So, with guests like you and people to work with like you, it's really made our job so much easier because of your truth and how truthful you are with your truth, and we can tell that. And so I don't know, I'm really excited to have you come here in St. Paul and really support your people. And you have a great family. And other shows we have right now until January are Rock the Treaties Native Style from 2 to 3. Then we have Pilots Progressive Party with my wife and I on at 5 to 6 on AM 950. And then we have Native Roots Radio, which we started, and that's a 2-hour show, 1 to 3 on Saturdays. And then also the symposium. So yeah, we're on a lot, and we're really excited to support you, Heather, and your family. And it's just really good circle you have. So thank you so much for allowing us to support you in a good way.
Well, it's together with Heather. I'm not doing it alone, right? It's all about us being together. So thank you all. Pilame, make sure that you wear a mask, stay healthy, and let's just do the best that we can to take care of our communities. Good night, and we'll see you all next Wednesday.